Nishanth, the co-founder at PocketFM, it's really scaled a lot in the last couple of years. It's been a 6-year journey, so it's definitely not an overnight success. You almost went bankrupt, and now almost touching 200 million in revenue. What has that journey been like?
I'll just talk about that day.
Yes.
I think it was just before Diwali. It was
Yeah.
in October itself. We just had like some 20 lakh in the bank, and so me, Rohan, and Pradeep were like, yeah, I don't want to shut down, so let's just go to Goa. We'll figure out what to do later. I think fortunately we came back and we had a term sheet from Tencent actually. I mean, out of nowhere, right? Tencent never used to fund anybody in Series A. I think that was like the sign from the God that, you guys should be onto
stick
this
around.
vision. See, both me and Rohan and Prateek, we were all friends, right? So we had this insight that there's a lot of scope to be done in audio. We used to brainstorm a lot. We started. Fortunately, we got seed funding as well very easily from Lightspeed and Mithane as well. But then when we actually started like going into the market, and the whole PMF journey was like, I mean, one of the toughest phase. I think that's probably true for all the companies, like when we actually so we had this hypothesis, let's just get a couple of audio content, right? We had an hypothesis that a lot of YouTube channels were uploading in audio. So without all those creators, we got them onboarded and we launched PocketFM app. And Lightspeed had told us that, for a consumer product, the PMF is like you get a day 30 of 10%, which is quite practical as well, right? I think 10% is probably the lower end of the retention benchmark, right? You should have a minimum of 10%. So we got retention of 2%, and we were like, wow, like, and all of our hypotheses sort of broke, and we were like, yeah, why is this happening? Where were we wrong? I think it took us like almost 6 months to get out of that whole cloud that we knew what the users wanted. 6 months was all that just breaking all of our convictions, accepting the reality, and then we realized that okay, we have to again start from first principles, move really fast. So then we started like building out hypotheses, right? Like, okay, if this is not working, what else is going to work? What else is going to get us that kind of retention? And so it took us like almost 2 years to get PMF. It's like, I think the investors have been very supporting for us. When we were almost going bankrupt, we did not have PMF. It was a second chance for us from Tencent that, you guys take another $5 million, try one more year. So after the Series A, we took one more year to get a PMF. So now I'll tell you like what the product is, right? I think most of you don't actually understand like what the product is. Think of TV, right? Like there's music channels, there is sports, there's something called GEC actually, which is general entertainment channels. Then there is news and all that, right? Any sort of wild guess, what is the revenue and engagement contribution of GEC to the overall TV revenue? Any sort of wild guess from anybody? 70%, right? Anybody else? Something like that. Yeah, I think she's right. 70%, right? So now, have you guys ever wondered? So in audio, right? Spotify was the only player, and they just do music. So there was nobody else. There's nothing else available. Why is it that in TV, music is just a 9-10% category, but in audio, it's a 100% category? So what does that actually tell us, right? So I think basically think of Pocket as it's a GEC product actually. I think it was so obvious that the Netflix was missing in audio. Like the music was obviously something that worked. It was quite natural, but there's no movie equivalent of it. There's no web series equivalent of it. There is no TV serial equivalent of it. There is no reality shows. Now, as a user, like the preferences like of how I consume, the difference between audio and video is like how I consume, right? Now, if I can watch something, why would I listen? Obviously, I'm going to watch. So, audio use cases already exist in our lifestyle, right? It could be like, we generally call it as like your eyes are busy and ears are free. It could be any use case, right? So, whenever I have an audio use case, Now, what I consume, why is it going to change? If I am consuming 70% of the entertainment in TV, in OTT, why would I consume music, right? Only music in that, because there's no option for me actually. There is no original, storytelling content actually. So we got this first story from a creator called Kitni Mohabbat actually. I think we launched it, and to a surprise, I think I just go to the office and we were like, so okay, some data was there, A/B test was done, and the retention was showing 12%. And we were like, we knew the day 7 was already very high, but we thought maybe the interest will fizzle out, but I think that was a PMF. So it was like a 40-hour story, uh, very high retention, and people were just hooked to it. And then we spoke to the users, they were like, I just love the story, and I'm listening it every day, 2 hours, 1 hour. I think that was our PMF journey. Then we realized that, okay, storytelling is what is missing in audio. Now, you might wonder, like, Audible also does something like storytelling, right? There's a lot of fiction kind and all that. But I think the insight was Netflix created a lot of original, right? Originals was the reason why they're so big. So you can't just take a book and just convert it to audiobook and expect everybody to use that, right? It's not gonna happen. So the second insight was like, okay, people want storytelling, and there is nothing else, nothing is available in storytelling actually. I think that was the sort of PMF journey.
So if I had to summarize, three big shifts was you moved away from
Yeah,
Gyan-like topics to fiction,
yeah.
better storytelling, audio as a platform,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing the duration is very long.
Now I'll tell you that part.
Yeah.
So there are basically, like, in video, three formats, right? There is TV serial, there is web series, and there is movie. Now, we started off with something like a movie. We started with 2-hour stories, 3-hour stories, and all that. So what we realized was, the second question came in, like, we have a PMF, but then how do you sort of monetize the product, right? So, and again, it took us another almost 6 months or so to figure out, like, what's the right monetization model. So what we figured out was the long form serialized storytelling. What I mean by that, I'll tell you. So a typical story right now in PocketFM is a 2000 episode story. 2000 to 4000 episodes. Okay. And each episode is like 10 minutes. Very character focused story. Like, the story is all about the hero, or about if it's we generally call it as a female drama show or a male drama. There's only major protagonist. The story just revolves around that character. A fantasy story would be like, it's a progressive story. You're always an underdog, and you sort of progress in that. Now, that is the format, and what we realized is that it's sort of like a similar to TV serial, right? That's also something which is 2000 episodes and all that. We realized this format, this long form story, serialized format, it could be our GTM for monetization as well. So it had the highest monetization potential right now. One thing is about figuring out PMF. Second thing is about how do you monetize that really well. So it was more of a conscious choice that we have to do long form content to monetize. So I'll tell you, like, why monetization is really. In fact, like, our current ARPUs are better than Netflix, and our retentions are better than Netflix actually.
What is Netflix ARPU and what is PocketFM's ARPU?
So in US, our ARPUs are like $180. I think Netflix is something at around 150 to 160.
Wow.
And the retentions, we are the paying users, we call them as waves. But we'll probably talk about that. The third year retention is like 55 to 60%. So it's a very high retention product. They just love it. You get hooked on the story. It runs for 2-3 years. Obsessed about character. I was just coming to office one day, and the cab driver was listening to a story called Super Yoda, and I was like, I just noticed that it was PocketFM thumbnail and all that. Then I asked him, like, what do you like? Why do you like this story? He was saying that I've loved this story because this character called Dhruv, who is the hero of the story, he just goes through so much struggle in life, still is successful, right? And like the struggle keeps coming and grows, and I want to be like him. And he told me I have listened twice. a 200-hour story is listened twice and has paid like 4,000 rupees over a period of last 2 years or so. I think that is the sort of the current product right now. Obviously, the TAM is not just the long form story. The TAM is we will have stories which are shorter as well, which we are currently doing right now. It could be 10 hours, it could be 2 hours as well. It was a conscious choice to do long form because of its crazy monetization and it's sort of funding the category, right? I think of it as like when Telco came, they did not do subscription, right? Jio did subscription today. They started with micro payments. I had to buy like pay 50 rupees for Airtel and buy like 50 rupees recharge, and every minute was charged, right? As the category grows, if you see any business model, they always start from microtransaction and then eventually as the category grows, they go into subscription actually. So I think we are in that journey. We are going to get a subscription as well. But
So today you pay by episode or show?
by episode.
By episode?
So,
Wow.
so I'll tell you like why microtransaction works, right? So again, it's a very sort of powerful consumer insight. These whales that generally pay for us, they consume like almost 80 to 100 hours a month. That's almost like 3 hours a day,
Yeah.
right?
That is insane.
And almost 25 days. The frequency of the app is like 25 days. Our average day engagement is like 2 hours, but the whales consume 3 hours. So I open the app, I open Super Yota, and we give 1 hour free. I give you like 5 episodes free. That's your hook every day. And then they feel like the next episode is going to unlock in 6 hours, right? It's like a very gamified sort of experience. And they feel like, no, I don't want to wait for 6 hours. I'll probably just listen 2 more episodes. Now what happens is they just buy like a 5 rupee or a 9 rupee. In US, almost 70% of our revenue comes from $5 and below packs. So I just pay $5. It's like a Starbucks coffee. I don't even feel that it's expensive, right? Pay $5, get like 20 coins, purchase 4 episodes. I got free again in the evening. I come back, again purchase another $2-3, again spend. So it's almost like a daily sort of an habit. You do not spend like $500 in a one day. You just spend it over a period of time. And that's the reason they don't, I mean, it's like Starbucks, right? People who drink coffee, they drink every day, right? And it's the hook that once you're hooked onto the story, it sort of works. And the free episode is what keeps them coming back. Again, all of this was not discovered overnight. I think our product team has an amazing job. So we keep sort of improving that. But this is sort of the product right now, and how do you monetize those users?
So how did you discover US as a market? Was it by chance or was it like a deliberate effort?
So
I'm guessing US
it
was
by
the
chance.
first market outside India.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when we started, we had no intention of going outside of India. I think we still used to discuss with a lot of investors that we just want a unicorn potential. And I think the question in Series B and all was like, can you guys do 100 million revenue? And we were like, we used to make a projection, okay, there is 100 million TAM in India and all that. So when we started monetizing and all that, right? So what we realized, we had indie content, and one of our business guy. So what he has done was the app was also available in US. So he ran some campaigns in Facebook to acquire users on US, but for NRIs actually. Indie content for NRIs, right? Very small experiment he had done. He got like some 10-20,000 installs, and their ARPUs were like insane, right? They were listening to indie stories, and they were paying like $100, $120, and we're like, how is this possible? Like India ARPU is like close to $10 for us right now, and it was almost like 15-20x for the same content. So that's when the whole discovery started. Okay, can this work for NRIs first? Then we went deeper, made it work. I think it was like honestly in one of our meeting, Rohan was like, "Yaar, why are you just doing for NRIs? Sabko karta hai na? Like let's just do for everybody, right?" Just that. Now I'll tell you like retrospectively. So we have a team in US now, almost like I think total 600 folks are there. I think it's more of a cultural difference, right? When somebody starts a company in US, they always think the team and the founders, they're building for the word action. But in India, the culture is like, We always think I'm just bidding for India actually. I think you have worked at Airbnb. I'm very sure the founders
Yeah.
never thought I'm just bidding for the US market. I think it is just that subtle, I don't know.
Default state.
It's a default state, right? Like, it's not that we had the deliberate thing. It is just in one of the meeting we were like, yeah, if NRI's creates working, why not do for US? Now, after that decision, I think we got Series B, selling the investors that we will do US. From that day, I think we took another 1.5 years to launch US because we had to. So we were very sure that, again, that's one of the culture at Pocket. Uh, See, money is not going to solve problems, right? You have to put like time to solve the problem. So US, we did some early experiments. We realized the unit economics was very bad. Uh, for ARPUs are like $160.
Why were unit economics? Were you selling different content in the US or?
No, you were not. We did not know how to acquire users efficiently.
Oh, I see.
So our CAC was like $300. So we were like, it's not going to work out. We have to burn a lot of money to do this, and let's not do that. So we decided, okay, let's go to US when we have solved the growth model actually. When we know how to grow efficiently, we'll go to US. It was very painful because the revenues had grown very fast. We had done some, like we went to 1 million MRR or so, but like, yeah, let's not go there. We knew a lot of companies have tried US, but they came back because of the CAC. So we didn't want to make that same mistake. Then we took almost a year and then built the whole, I would say it's a product led plus content led growth. Probably we'll talk about that later, but like we brought down our CAC from $300 to $50.
What did you do? I want to know.
So, if you ask me, like the first 2 years was like PMF, right? The biggest amount of time was taken for this actually. So that's what every founder says. That I think I was just watching Deep in this interview last week. He's saying that distribution is the toughest, right? I think that's true and that's true for us also. I mean, I'm just reiterating it again. How tough is it that it took us almost 1.5 years to reduce that CAC? See, the core insight was we were initially marketing audio series. We were telling our users, you come to PocketFM to listen to audio series. And the users were like, okay, fine. What is this audio series? I don't know. I'll just download the app. They were like, I don't know what to listen. Right? It's as simple as that. Like, none of your stories are famous. It's not like Netflix, right? When I sign up for Netflix, I know there is Sacred Games, I know there is Friends, I know there is Office. I can easily get activated on that. In PocketFM, the stories are like, I don't know any of them, right? Why would I randomly listen to a story like that? So we realized that we cannot market category. We have to market a story. Now the problem was, we were able to crack that easily in India. But in US, like how do I know which story is actually going to be something we call it as a blockbuster. So blockbusters are the stories which have a very low CAC. So it's like it's just like out of 1,000 stories, you'll get one blockbuster. Every other story CAC is like $300, but the blockbuster CAC is going to be $50. We don't know the reason, but it just happens. That's how it is. Now then we're like, okay, how do I find this blockbuster, right? Now, I'll tell you the solution.
Yeah.
Now, what we have built. We have built something called as a Blockbuster engine. It sounds fancy and all that. That's what we call internally. So, it's like a product, okay, where every day, almost 1,000 creative people work in our company right now. What they do is, basically, you have an idea, like what story is going to work. But the problem is that I don't know which of that is a blockbuster, right? So, you sort of feed into that system. Think of it as like a product where I can just, for example, Mona, you have an idea that, okay, this story could be very high appealing, could be a blockbuster. You just create an outline of that story, like a just 30-minute outline, how the story is going to pan out and all that. And then you just upload that to our internal product. Again, it's like a secret sauce I'm just probably explaining. And what that product does is, within our app, it recommends that to a lot of users. Again, there's like a lot of sophistication that whom to recommend and all that. And it gives you signals that whether this particular story is going to be a blockbuster and how far is it from a blockbuster. Now, what creative people do is they iterate on that actually. So, I have a concept, I realize that okay, the benchmark should be like something like 30%. My story is at 5%, it's not going to work. Your story could be at 20%. So, I do further iterations. Now, I'll just tell you the scale of it, right? So, we're almost like 1,000 people across India and US, creative people working on this. I think every month some 10,000 concepts plus are tested actually. So that's the kind of scale.
Wow.
So now I'll tell you like how Netflix creates blockbusters. It's completely different. It's not product led. So what they do is there is somebody with 20 years of experience who has probably like somebody like Karan Johar who joins the company. He's the head of the content and he sort of like has a conviction that what is going to work. He decides like okay, this is the story that is going to work and I want like Ananya Pandey for this and I'll launch this story. 20% of the time it works out, but for Pocket that was not possible. One, we are not content folks, right? And I think so. One good thing is like so me, Rohan, and a lot of our L1s, they're all product folks, right? I think we always wanted to. I think we're more comfortable in building product than sort of building a creative sort of a company, right? So now this 1,000 people, most of them are like freelancers slash contract, right? They're not like very sort of expensive leaders and all that. So basically, we have sort of democratized finding Blockbuster. We built all of that in India. Now it's like a machine, right? I can take it to Germany, hire 100 creative folks, and they keep on iterating, they keep on testing what's going to work, and naturally we'll get a Blockbuster. I think that's the reason we are like every.
I was actually curious. One of the questions I had for you was, what is the role of product at Pocket FM? It's a very creative company, right? What do product managers do?
I think it's there in every part of our business actually.
Yeah, tell us more.
This blockbuster, this is the most crucial part. I'll just tell you what is a blockbuster, right? Like something which makes like $25 million in revenue. A typical blockbuster makes $10 to $25 million at today, probably going to go to 50. So
25 million is what? 100? How many crores
close
is it?
to around 200 to 50 crore actually. 200 crore.
Wow. Over what period of time?
Or if I launch today in the next 6 months. I think some of our stories have crossed like I think almost reaching 300 plus also. They are going to make 500 CR as well. So that powerful is a blockbuster, right? So now the whole blockbuster, the entire product is like built. The whole product team works on that. Now you might feel like, see, there's a lot of complexity in that. A lot of false positives that come in. Imagine when I'm working on 10,000 concepts. It's the subjective. Creative is all subjective. There is going to be so much false positive. The kind of sophistication, the data that goes in, the algorithms which tells you like, whether the story, because see, we always have this thought like, what if you're missing on a next blockbuster? Maybe the story was good, but my algorithms are telling me wrong result. I think that whole, there's this huge product team which just optimizes that product, the whole blockbuster engine.
How many false negatives have you heard?
False negatives.
Things you have discarded, but somewhere else it got created and they were actually good.
So that has happened actually. So
it has?
Yeah.
Give us the example.
So this story just made the most revenue, like Saving Nora. So India team had rejected that concept because it was not coming to our benchmarks of a blockbuster. They tried a lot, they did a lot of experiments. When the US team took it, somehow they were like able to crack it again. That's a good thing of being global, that there is so much amount of creative diversity. Somebody or else also reworks on that concept and made it work. It became a blockbuster in US and then now it's also blockbuster in India. It's the same story actually.
But you sell under the same title, or is that like title localized?
The story is rewritten completely. It's like
okay.
I mean, if somebody is listening in US and listening in India, you won't feel that it's exact same story. It's sort of.
So what is it called in India?
Ek ladki ko dekha.
All right.
So probably somebody know that, right? I think it's going to reach 1 billion plays also and all that. It was discovered in US first, And we were very surprised that India team was always ahead, but they sort of missed out.
So when you say the US team made it work, basically the creative people in the US were able to figure out how to bridge the delta between what was written as the baseline story and what is benchmark for Blockbuster by iterating on it.
I think it was flaw in our algorithms also.
Oh, okay.
So I think
So you discovered that as well.
today, like we are probably 40% there. There's still a lot of false positives. We're still improving that. So this is one huge component where product plays. And then again, the whole monetization. I think the way we have sort of structured product is that product sort of works. It's like an independent function, right? Directly reports to founders. So we have a business teams which are more focused on user acquisition and content creation, content production, right? So product has complete ownership of revenue, right? In a sense that if today's revenue drops, the first person we're going to ask is a product. So it's in that sense a very product-led company. And they don't have like somebody from business telling them what to do every month, every week. It's like a sort of a independent org in itself, which also collaborates with business, but solves their problem as well, but drives a lot of charters on their own. So monetization is one part, Blockbuster, obviously the whole recommendation, like what to recommend for the users, how do you make them crosswalk. I was a product manager, one was a product manager, and like, yeah, if we are going to build this company and successful, we are only comfortable in product, so let's solve every problem from a product lens. I don't want like, creative people telling me this month, this Blockbuster is going to work, do it, but the next month I don't know what's going to work. I want a playbook, I want a machine actually. I don't want like a,
Yeah, you want something repeatable.
Something repeatable and all that. So in product, I would say data/product folks are the final call.
Got it.
So both data and product directly report to founders. Like very different vertical. They help business, but they're not like business sort of has the ownership there. Yeah.
So what are the markets you are in right now? US, Europe?
So US and Europe and LATAM as well. Europe, we are really big in UK already. I think we are starting in Germany. We have the content ready, so we've just started marketing now.
What is the chronology of a market? Like, how does it begin?
It's an interesting part, right? So the first is obviously content production, right?
Yeah.
So I think actually, before that, the localization part. So the product.
How do you decide this market first?
GDP.
Using data?
No, because see, the product is completely white space. Every country is going to be a market, whether it is West Bengal or whether it is Italy, right? So we purely prioritize based on GDP.
On GDP, okay,
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we're like, why UK? Because that's the biggest. Why Germany? That's the second biggest in Europe. And now.
And there is correlation between GDP and ARPU.
Yeah.
Okay.
So GDP and the revenue. GDP per capita has very strong correlation with the ARPU, ARPUs from that. So
makes total sense.
So we are now launching France, Italy, and Spain as well. LATAM, we're already there. Actually, LATAM, we did not start from LATAM point of view because in US, 20% of the population is Spanish. So we started from a US point of view, but then the
adoption happened. Yeah.
That worked there as well. So I think it's a white space, right? I mean, if you ask me like, why are we not doing 50 countries? Why are we only doing so?
It's the limitation of the team, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's actually, yeah, you're right. I thought you would say capital, but it's not. The good thing is that we are very efficient in terms of unit economics. Our paybacks are like, when I say payback, I'm talking about CM1 payback. So our gross margins are like something like 65%, right? So very high gross margin business.
Yeah, actually, one of the most surprising realizations I had when I was thinking about PocketFM was, if you think about unit economics for a video genre, majority of the cost is actually the production.
Yeah.
And that production cost is completely eliminated in audio. I think the second biggest cost is the actors themselves, the primary characters.
Yeah.
And the more famous they become, the more relatable they become. You want more of them, and they keep charging you more. In audio, you don't have any of these constraints. Yeah. I'm actually wondering, is sci-fi like a good category for you? Especially in India, because I feel like sci-fi video production is so hard.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
No, so for us, fantasy is almost like 60% of our revenue actually. We call it as fantasy.
60%.
Yeah, fantasy is like very underserved in video, so it becomes very easy to sell. And the retentions, a 300-hour retention. 300 hours is insane, right? I think we would take like 1 year to complete the story. A fantasy story has like almost 50% completion rate. For somebody who purchases a show, 50% of them are going to pay till 300 hours. Whereas for a drama, it's something like 15-20%. So it's like a huge differentiator in terms of revenue. In terms of engagement, drama is big, the number of users, but fantasy is so addictive, and you just go get on to the story and all that, right?
So tell us about, in the descending order of genres, what genres work the most, and complexity of building these genres.
So drama is the largest in terms of engagement. Romance, romance drama, and then we call it as a male drama story, which is like
rags to riches,
and all of that. So drama is the biggest, naturally, even in video, that's the biggest. The second biggest in terms of engagement is thriller, actually. Like thriller / horror, which is also very similar. But in terms of revenue, like fantasy beats. Fantasy is niche actually in terms of user, it's not a large base, but the retention, as I told you, is so high that it overcompensates in terms of revenue and all of that. So it's like a drama, thriller, and fantasy.
Awesome. So what is the biggest problem statement you're solving today?
How do you scale fast actually? So
geographically or content-wise?
Within a market. So I think that's what the biggest problem we're trying to solve. So
how does product play a role in that?
So I think it's a story. So I'll tell you probably, I think that's the next phase now. I talked about Blockbuster engine, and so Blockbuster engine it's as good as the input, right? If all of my input is bad, it's not going to give me anything. So since it's not a category that exists, so there is no story out there. So whatever that was available, we tested everything. So now we are just like left with no story, right? And we started creating. We went to China. There were some players there. We went to Korea as well, Japan as well. We tried everything. So every country, any story that is out there which has not been done in video, because if something is done in video, it's not going to work in audio. It has to be original story. We have tried all of that, and now we are like that's becoming a blocker, right? So almost like 1 year back, we realized that early signs of it. We started UGC, user-generated content, and again, this is something that a lot of like people don't believe that users can create a 200-hour story. So we have a millionaire as well right now, and
oh wow,
it's already working. We have a crazy PMF on that. So the next big thing that we are doing is, my Blockbuster engine is great, but I don't have stories to feed in that actually. Now, again, being product folks, if Netflix, I would have done originals. That's one way to solve this problem. Like, build your own creative team, you create your own story. But I think we tried this honestly, right? We got in folks from Hotstar, all of that. Even in US also, we built a team. We were not able to work with them actually. It's so difficult to work with those creative folks because they just don't understand data, and the way video works is very different actually. The way the industry is structured, right? It's very subjective, and it's more like a hero-led and all that. So we realized it's probably we can't crack original. So we launched UGC, and so our power users, we call them as bingers. So over a period of day 90 days, 180, like days like from the install, right? I download the app, I love the story, I'm listening it every day, and we just introduced a tab in our app, like you can also become a writer, you can also become famous, write your own story and all that. But the biggest problem was, okay, I can write a story, but how am I going to create an audio? Because my voice is not great. And most of them were not comfortable like recording themselves because they are like very shy that, okay, my voice is not great and all that. I think the ChatGPT helped us a lot. I think this was the biggest blocker, honestly. So, if AI has helped one company, that's Pocket. So, you won't believe this. We have tried this before as well. I think Amazon, AWS had some text to speech and all that. When we do an A/B test, of a human voice versus Amazon Poly and all that, within 10 hours the numbers used to drop 50%. We used to measure hourly retention. But when we integrated the ChatGPT voice, right, it's same as human voice.
Wow. So did you have to train those voices or?
We had to. I think now, so the good thing is we have like 30,000 hours of training data. We had to optimize a lot, but almost at a scale of 50,000 listeners, 1,000 listeners, AI voice is as good as human right now. I don't know whether, see, a Blockbuster has like 20 million listeners. Maybe the difference will come in at that, but today it's working already. So AI voice, and then we have built a tool in, like, even if you just check out our Pocket app, there is a tab called Write. You can just become a writer. It's a very smooth flow. Now, again, there's some insight there, right? It's not that obvious to create a 200-hour story. So what happened was we saw a lot of users signed up, I want to become a writer. They wrote like 2-3 episodes and then they got like bored, right? They're like...
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how many people actually follow through the whole process?
Right? So I think we realized that we used to tell them, like, you have to write a 200-hour story. You have to write a 1,000-episode story. Obviously, that was a put off for a lot of writers. They're like, how am I going to think of a 1,000-hour story? It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Right? I think the core insight came was like, I think it's one of the Hollywood director, I forgot his name. He was saying that you don't climb Everest by just looking at it. You just climb step by step.
Yeah.
Right? So, and they do the same thing, it seems. Like any epic that is created, it's all like written every day. It's not like somebody thought, I just write like a 300-hour Harry Potter series. It's not. So we pivoted our entire UGC value proposition to don't write 1,000-episode story, but you have to write every day, right? Weekly, at least I want 3 episodes. That was the sort of minimum mandate, and we incentivized writers. And we just told them 10 minutes every day. So if I have to write 10 minutes, I have to sit for 1.5 hours because I need a creative time and all that, right? And that found like a strong PMF. Because see, I might be a software engineer. By the way, we have like doctors writing stories, a couple of investment banker also. See, like again, see, UGC always works. It has worked in Instagram, it has worked in YouTube. Nobody thought like people are going to create, YouTube videos of 20 minutes, UGC folks and all that. So passion was already there. I think there was a lot of interest. As of today, we have 2 lakh individual unique writers who have written something in Pocket within 1 year of launching it. Crazy adoption. Every day we get almost 2,000 new stories. The scale
2,000 new stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's insane scale. So the way it works is you start writing the story, and then there's obviously an algorithm which is removing all the negatives, and if a story is decently good, it recommends. And then we incentivize the writers to write every day, and that becomes an habit.
How do you incentivize?
One, we tell them that if you write every day, we're going to get more plays, more visibility in the app. That's the biggest.
So sorry, when I write, my story instantly shows up.
So yeah. So for example, we both are writing. I am writing every day versus you are writing once in a week and all that. I will get more visibility through recommendations and all that. So that's
interesting.
And see, actually, it's also very surprising that we thought the biggest motivation is going to be money. For a lot of these people, it's not. Money is just there. It's always there, right? Okay, they thought like, okay, will my story be making 100 crore? No, nobody expect that actually, right? They have passion. They want visibility actually, right? They want reach. They want community of their own. They love the fact that, okay, there's a comment on my story. Somebody follows me on the Pocket, and I get 100 views, I get 5,000 views. Some of my story has got 1 million. I think that is the strongest pull. So we just told them that, if you write every day, your story is going to get more impressions. And we started showing that in their dashboard, right? How much difference does it make? If you're getting 20 impressions every day, if you write every day, it will go to 100 impressions. The daily retention almost like 3x. When I say daily retention, we used to measure like number of writers who start writing and write almost every day in a week. That number went like from, I think, some around 10 or 12% to like 30-40% actually. That was the biggest sort of insight making this work. Now we have a story right now, which is I think I'm expecting this to be the biggest. Written by a college student, the one of the best retention ever in the app. Out of all the story we have done, it's almost like 2,000 episodes, and she has no training whatsoever. All of it is done.
And she was a listener first.
Yeah.
And became a writer.
I think the biggest insight is that these power users spend so much time, they listen 150 hours, 200 hours, they somehow feel like I can also write a story, and they learn that actually. I think the main part is the social, I would say social writing. So what happens is, let's say I wrote a chapter, episode on 50th episode, and the comments came in saying that, I didn't like this. I didn't like what the character is doing, right? Immediately the writer gets that feedback. So I think that was the biggest, and then we share data that, what's the episode to episode drop off, what's the episode completion rate and all of that. So some of the writers just love that, instant gratification, and the feedback cycle is so fast. I upload a chapter today, I get tomorrow, like within few hours, I get to know comments that people are not liking it, and I change the story. And we also allow them to change the previous episodes as well. So it's like a very, I would say, like a different paradigm of creating stories actually. It's like a more social, right? Like I'm not just sitting in like silo, which is what happens in video right now. A Netflix web series is written by a bunch of writers sitting in Mumbai who really don't have connect with the audience, right? Like what do they want actually? I think one very unique thing that happens in UGC is that the kind of stories are like, you will not even think of a concept like that. They're so unique. That's the power of UGC.
And so this student was a listener of Pocket FM, decided to become a writer.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing over a period, she basically wrote the 2,000 episodes. While she was writing, did you give her any feedback, or she just kind of wrote it by herself?
It's daily feedback, right? Like you have if you log in, you're going to get notifications. It's like a proper Instagram type product.
Oh, interesting.
So I have to write every day. I upload the episode today. Within few hours, I'll start getting notifications like your episode has reached 100 plays, 200 plays, and I start getting comments. I tell you what happens actually, why they get obsessed about it. When the story reaches 100 episodes, we start monetizing that story, and that's become the real kicker.
So you start monetizing basically the 100 episode, at the 100 episode engagement mark, you launch it.
I mean, it's already there in the app. We just explored that actually in terms of impressions. It's very controlled right now.
So what happens between launching an app and monetizing an app? What is the difference?
The story has to be really good, and then we just open the gate actually. It's just the algorithm change.
And then the writer starts to make money at the 100th episode.
Yeah. So what happens is, like, let's say your story is really good and the first 100 episodes are always free. That's how we hook the audience as well. Now after
100 episodes are free for the listener, and 100 episodes you don't pay the writer.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's zero revenue. Again, the motivation of community and all that. So the monetization starts. Now think of it as like that, right? Let's say I got like 10,000 listeners. 1,000 of them convert. Now 1,000 of them are paying like 10 rupees every day. Like it's insane, right? I'm uploading something, I'm getting 10,000 rupees. And let's say the retention is bad, that revenue is going to drop to 9,000 rupees. So it becomes very obvious for me that the story is going bad.
Yeah.
So they are obsessed now. Like the initial part is the social part, like the hobby part. It starts off an hobby, then the whole social validation kicks in. Then the money is going to sort of like pulling you like in that interest. Because it takes like almost 1.5 years to write 2,000 chapters, right? So it becomes almost like an addiction. Like if the revenue drops, they even sort of mail us like, why has the revenue dropped? Are users not liking my story and all that? So that's how the whole flow works actually.
Oh, it's very interesting. And so one of the biggest problem statements you're basically solving right now is how to scale fast across
each story, and we're
doing UGC, and then you're doing UGC, which is quite insane. And I think, at least from what I gathered in the last hour, I think your secret sauce is this engine that can filter everything that is coming in and know where to prioritize and put more effort. And drive that clarity both for you internally, but also for the writer through these feedback loops. So they whatever that little bit of delta is to getting to that blockbuster category keeps getting bridged faster and faster. Which is very interesting because, like you said, traditional media houses kind of have a very subjective lens of evaluation, and hence it's very dependent on the person and all the casting couch, etc. issues that it has.
I think it is democratized now, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way, I mean, the rate at which we're growing in UGC, I think we are going to have billions of writers in India. And that is something unheard of, right? Like, nobody ever thought, like, there's going to be a million writers in India who have written stories which have, like, which have got, like, reach and engagement.
Yeah, it's actually, one of the hardest things that I have found hiring is a good copywriter. I'm gonna tap into your network to figure that out. But going back to the point of team structuring, are there separate product managers for the US or product is centralized?
Product is centralized.
And then you have content teams and creative teams which are geography specific. Right. And then business teams which are geography specific.
Yeah, the product is central, directly works with us. They work on like problems like this. We actually call product as an R&D function actually because they're sort of like isolated. Their problems are like build engine, build
platform products.
Yeah,
platform products.
Very less interaction with business in that sense. You are not, see, unlike an e-commerce product, I mean, I used to work in Grofers. The biggest problem for me was I go to office, 10 business people used to come and tell me, yaar, ye problem hai, ye problem hai. That's not the case in Pocket.
I'm sure a lot of people are smiling here because they have the same problem.
I think honestly, the problem at Pocket for product manager is that problem discovery. It's really hard. I think, see, I am just throwing insights like this, but these insights take years together. You have to do lot of A/B tests, lot of research, lot of data. 90% of the time you are wrong.
Yeah, so how does problem discovery happen today?
See, there's art and science both.
Let's talk about the art. We can keep the science later.
So we have this something called it's mandatory for all the PMs to, see, it's a human instinct, right? Like, have a metric. First instinct is like, I'll come up with a list of solutions myself. Like, based on my hypothesis, right? Like, these are the problems. So I think that culture doesn't exist in Pocket. You have to talk to users, and we have access to both emails. You can reach out in US as well, India. So the first step is like talking to users, meeting them, and like you have an hypothesis, you go and sort of validate that. So it's very sort of user research and data centric. These are the first two steps. Like, I have an hypothesis, this is what is happening. I'll just tell you like how one of the very interesting feature, very counterintuitive also. One of the PM was like, I have this coins, right? Like, I purchase coins. So some cohort of users, what they were doing was, they were just purchasing 100 episodes instead of purchasing one episodes and all that. So he had an hypothesis that, it's a bad behavior. People should not do that, right? Why? Because, I'll realize that I'm actually spending so much and it start pinching me and then I'll leave, right? You went to the data, causation was there. Correlation was there actually, that people who purchase more than one episode at once, they had lower retention than people who purchase one episode. Data was proving that. Then he talked to a lot of users and sort of validated to them also. They were also saying, very expensive. So what he did was, we did a survey where 100 users, 50 users who have never purchased more than one episode versus 50 users who done that. The number of users complaining it's expensive was almost 3x higher in this cohort. So it was sort of validating that, it's a psychological thing, right? I am feeling that it's very expensive because I have paid you $50 and it's like, wow. So that was giving good revenue, by the way. So that flow gives you upfront revenue, right? So he proposed a feature where like, I'm just going to remove that altogether. I just give one flow. You can only unlock one episode at a time. There's no option to unlock 10 episode, 20 episode, 50 episode. Very counterintuitive feature. We were like, yeah, why are you doing this? That is contributed to 40% of our revenue. He launched the experiment. The A/B test was negative. It was like almost 20% revenue drop. Very powerful. Now, he was like, yeah, I am convinced this is going to work. Within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the cohort started changing. The numbers started going up. And I think by day 30 or so, day 30 post allocation, the cohorts are all positive because they realize that I think this is the kind of work you do at Pocket. It's like you have an hypothesis which can come from either data or talking to users and sort of validate with user research, launch an experiment, and all of this is done in like 2 to 3 weeks because that is very important because we have 90% of the experiments failed. So you need to move very fast, right? I think that's the whole problem discovery.
So what, according to you, is the most unique feature at Pocket FM?
I think UGC, I would say, it's like something which even when we started Pocket, we never thought it's going to be a user-generated content product. I mean, for storytelling, right? Like it's the most non-obvious thing ever that something like a amazing story, can come from like anybody actually, anybody in this room as well. I think that was, I would say, the biggest innovation at Pocket. Microtransaction is still a lot of games have cracked it, but UGC is something which is very really proud of team as well. Yeah.
What is one thing you thought would not work and has worked really well?
I think the whole microtransactions, obviously.
Microtransactions?
Yeah.
So your first payment method was not microtransactions?
It was subscription. It was obvious. We started with subscription. I think it was almost 1 year, right? Like even internally we had these doubts that, are we doing something wrong? Because nobody has done this in the content product. We thought like the retentions are not going to be there. Maybe we'll get a week 12, week 24, week 52 is going to drop. So, and obviously we don't have data. We're like, every week we used to panic like, yeah, is the long-term behavior not happening? Are people realizing that, it's too expensive or I don't want to pay so much? And it turned out to be a huge success. Our week 12 and our week 144 is same.
Oh, wow.
It's like we have data in only India market is 3 years old. That's like even counterintuitive for us also that you won't believe this, like any guess like paying users in India, how much are they paying per month actually? Any wild guess in India? Tier 2, our market is right now tier 2 primarily. We're not targeting tier 1 yet. Any wild guess? 100?
100 you said?
100. Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Sorry?
100 per day?
Per month I'm saying, yeah.
3,000 per month.
No, that's a lot, right? It's 36,000 per year, but yeah, something like that. Yeah, tier 2, like, I'm talking about India to audience with an average income of like 5 to 10 lakh annual income. Something like that, yeah. I think it's between 400 to 500 rupees per month actually.
That's a lot.
It feels a lot, but the users don't feel that. The whales don't feel that.
Yeah, because of microtransactions.
Because of microtransactions. See, people are also, like every addictive business is like that. So we had our country.
But there's also this counter argument, which is the more friction you add to making payments and the more frequent they are, you have to find loops to get them to that conversion, right?
It's true. Completely agreed. I think so. That is the another next big thing that you're working on in the product. So how do you expand this? Like, how do you diversify from microtransactions to subscription and beyond? Actually, I think we are sort of launching another sort of a variation of this where subscription and microtransaction will coexist, but in a very sort of beautiful way where revenues are also maintained. At the same time, a majority of a user problem is solved from an expensive point of view. Again, like almost, I think some 40-50 experiments have been done on this. Different business model. Any model that you can think of, daily subscription, weekly subscription, everything has been tried. I think we have finally hit the answer, like what is that going to work? I think something like, you buy a subscription.
What is the answer?
You get like almost 20 episodes free every day. Again, very like sort of subtle insight. The whales generally consume 3 to 4 hours a day versus majority of the others consume 1 to 2 hours. So what we thought was like, let's make subscription 2 hours free. If I subscribe, I'm going to give you 2 hours free. Now 95% or 90% of my users are happy now. That's what they consume. It's free now. the 5-10%, and their retentions are insane. Like their retentions are 80%, 90% actually. So they really don't care. So I think again data back.
Yeah,
So
that's very interesting. What is one thing you thought would work really well but really bombed?
I think a lot of it.
A lot of it, okay. Tell us the one big that you were really gunning for. Very gung-ho about.
I mean, it has happened in growth and content a lot actually. I mean, in the product, it happens every day. So I mean, product is all about experiments, right? I probably talk about growth and content, like because that's where we had like a very strong bet. Like for example, originals was something we invested 6 months on that. I myself was like heavily gung-ho about it. I got in a lot of hopes from Netflix and everything, and then we realize it's not going to work. See, in product we get every day like this tens of experiments done, so we keep failing on that. I think the biggest, I mean, though I would say like the subscription itself, right? We've still not cracked, so that is something that we had to crack. Every week there is some more new experiment that's happening. I think that's the kind of obsession at Pocket. Like we generally don't give up on any metric, right? Because see, you are creating category, and there is no example of another product where I can say, okay, these are the numbers at Flipkart, so let me just achieve that. Like we don't know whether whale retention is 55% is good. It could be 70% also. So that's the kind of obsession we have. Like, how do I take from 55 to 60? 60 to 65, right? So just keep on working on the same problem, just micro optimize, like go deeper into it, and then identify insights and solve that. A very different sort of product from commerce or a business-led companies, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So, if you had to kind of talk a little bit about sort of the core growth engine, because I think one thing that has really stood out in your journey is maybe we'll actually just set the context by talking a little bit about numbers.
Yeah.
How many registered users do you have on the platform today?
I think almost 200 million plus registered.
How many are monthly active?
Close
Or what's your metric? Do you measure daily active or monthly active?
monthly active.
Okay.
35 million or so. And
Wow.
our monthly engagement total time spent is like 10 billion minutes.
Wow.
I was just doing some math. It's like 1/30th of Twitter actually. X. So we are like 1/30th of X set. So we'll get there.
Yeah.
So
What's the time you're going after?
2 years, I guess, realistically.
Okay.
Team we are pushing for 1 year, but like I think it's long way to go, honestly, right? I mean, see, the TAM is the entire internet audience, because your product is entertainment, right? So I have an audio, like I'm very sure if you think about it a bit. Now that's what the problem of user behavior. All of you have an audio use case actually. All of you have. The only subtle difference is you have not yet discovered that actually. You have an audio use case, but you don't have the content fit. Like now that is where the whole habit formation starts kicking in. That's the toughest part for us. So
And what percentage of your audience is India or US?
see,
Major geographies I'm guessing today are India, US.
US and India, in terms of, I think it's almost 70% India MAU and 30% is the entire world. Total 20% would be US, 10% is Europe and other countries.
What about the revenue split?
Revenue is like reverse because of the ARPU.
Yeah.
India is like 25% or so, and rest of the world is.
And what's your revenue run rate today?
Upwards of 200 million.
Wow.
See, I think again another culture at Pocket is that like we don't. I think there are very few startups doing 200 million plus revenue, but
Not talking about it.
yeah, not talking about right. So that's the culture at Pocket. In any meetings, you always like I would say like under expect and over plan actually, right? So every meeting is like that. If someone says like 10%, we are going to assume it's 1% impact, and then we're just going to say the next question is like, how do I get to next 10% impact? That's the kind of culture. It's just obsession about user problem. We know the output metrics, the world will realize that, I think. And also strategically for us, it's very important to be not too much under the spotlight. because it's a large category and obvious players like Spotify or anybody else can come in, right? And we want to be like really big and have built-in modes before anybody else starts noticing this category.
Yeah, who are your competitors?
As of now, there is nobody. I mean, you might say like hey, you're being over ambitious and all that. I think we actually don't have any competitors. There is a player like KukuFM, but they do something else. Actually, they're not into story.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask a question. How many people think KukuFM is Pocket FM's competitor?
Actually, a lot.
Yeah, I told you this before.
No,
He
this
was
is true.
surprised when I said that.
I think
You should
this
explain
is-
what is the difference.
See, I think the difference is they don't do storytelling right now. I mean, there's huge difference in the scale and the revenue. I think we're probably 20x bigger than them, and they're more into knowledge and podcast and all that, which we did in our PMF journey, and we left actually because we had this criteria that we will go after a category which is really large. So I think that's a huge difference. They're not into storytelling yet. Probably they'll come in, but very huge difference.
Also, different markets, right? They are very focused. They're very
focus on
India.
and not global as well. And for example, our engagements are like 130 minutes. Theirs is like 25-30 minutes, which is a huge difference actually in terms of the. Our competitor could be like obviously probably
Spotify.
YouTube or Spotify and all that, but not right now. I think.
So you'd say the biggest difference between you and Spotify, or at least the moat you're looking to build, is the UGC play?
Yeah. Because the UGC is it's a network effect product. That's very difficult to break, right? I'm a writer. I've already built a community here. Like I have 20k followers. Now I have to go to another product and again have to build. So it's a natural choice for me to be here. So I think UGC is our biggest sort of. And actually, if you see, all the content UGC products have a monopoly as well. There's only one YouTube, there's only one Instagram, there's only one Pinterest. I think that's the power of UGC product. They kill everybody else actually. So the network effects are so strong that it's very difficult for other product to coexist actually. So I think that's the hope that we'll get there before somebody notices about this category.
Interesting. Why should the best PMs work at Pocket FM?
I think if you want to solve some of the toughest consumer behavior shaping problems. See, for me, I was at Grofers, right? So I'll just tell you my own journey. I was a PM. So amazing product, right? Grofers was great. But the problem was like, I was just doing what business was telling me to do. They were just telling, yeah, this category visibility is wrong. Like the CAC is higher, like my cost per delivery is higher. And they also used to come up with solutions like what to do. That was my biggest kickoff here. I want to like solve problems. I want to discover problems and create impact through product, not just solve the business problems, right? That's why I went to Geo7, which was also a great product. Worked on music recommendations, which was also very tough, right? I think Pocket is that. You're going to work in so your problems are, how do I increase my whale retention? How do I make more users whales? How do I solve non-whales business model? And there is no business person sitting next to you and asking you what to do and all that. It's like, it's just obsession about user behavior, identifying insights, and then sort of like shaping that behavior through your experiments and learning and reiterating very fast. I think honestly, these kind of products, probably I'm not overstating it, are very few in India right now because great consumer products like Airbnb and all have always been US first products, right? I think it's just we are in like a such lucky spot that first time we are building a global consumer internet product from India, which is almost 90% product led.
Honestly, I think I was thinking actually about examples of India B2C products that are built for the rest of the world from India. I could only think of Pocket FM actually.
In consumer internet, there are actually not many.
Yeah, there's a lot on B2B.
Eruditus is there, but
Yeah.
they're in tech, but
Correct.
mostly targeting B2B, I would say. B2B.
Yeah, most of there is
Yeah.
B2B2C. It's not B2C directly.
I think direct consumer product is, I think the most exciting part every day is like, even for me, is like, how do I, as a PM, how do you shape consumer behaviors actually? That's like the toughest part. How do you make somebody who has never listened to story, make them listen to story? and get hooked onto it and come every day. It's like really hard problems to solve. I think that's what should be at Pocket if you want to solve that. I think same with users as well. UGC is again another beast. How do you improve the funnels? How do you make more writers successful? How do you make them reach 200 hour? What are the product levels to get there?
So how do PMs actually get these insights? Because they are not the target audience, right? Or do you only hire people who actually use the product deeply?
It's not. I think you compensate that through. Actually, some of them use now. Since we have launched US, a lot of folks in our product team start using English content because they were like not very resonating with the Hindi content, right? That has solved to some extent, but I think it's more with the users. Like you sort of solve
Just
that.
talking to them.
Just talking to users. Be obsessed about. It's almost like a mandate. Like you have to, for every feature, any experiment you launch, you have to have a consumer research backed or data, like which is very giving you very strong correlation.
Throughout this conversation, we've talked a lot about the importance of experimentation at Pocket FM, especially in product. What is the experimentation platform or infrastructure that exists that makes experimentation easy?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think that is the biggest challenge. Like,
True.
I think a lot of PMs have ideas that they want to experiment, but how do you actually experiment
No, that
and do multiple at the same time and be confident of the results you're getting?
No, that's true. I think you sort of addressed each part of that. So it's actually not. It's not like some tool that is SaaS tool will just integrate and do evidence. It's not. We realized that over time, right? So we were using a couple of SaaS tools that are like claiming to be product experimentation tools, right? But we built it in-house now. So I'll just tell you the complexity, right? Like why we had to do that. One example, when you allocate users to experiment, the results change so much. As a PM, you'll be like, every day you come to office, you're on a roller coaster journey. Like yesterday, the results are something else. Today, it's something else actually. Because the quality of the user that are allocated to experiment is such a big factor. And because of which we were just getting like all wrong insights. PMs were like just wasting their time in like analyzing and then realizing it was not even scalable, right? So we built a tool which sort of like for any given experiment figures out what is the right set of allocation required. It's not about number, right? Like I need 20,000 users. It's not that. It sort of randomizes the quality of the users actually. So if you have 30 million MAU, not everybody is the same. Now I have to ensure out of 100 allocations, everything is represented equally. So the biggest problem with all of this SaaS tool is that experiments are allocated randomly, but they're not random actually. There's a lot of bias in that. So how do you even solve the allocation part? And how do you, another big problem is statistical significance.
Yes.
Like, when the results come in, like how do you tell it's, and another big part is, if I am a really experimentation-led product company, your client has to support that, which is the biggest blocker. Because the client doesn't move very fast, right? The Android and iOS apps have a release cycle of 15 days, 1 month. So now we have gotten to a shape where each and every element is back in control actually. No, it's about architecture.
Okay.
I think something I'm sure Airbnb and all would.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's so funny that there are so many experimentation platforms, everything from like an Optimizely to there's at least 10 of them. But somehow the best companies who have this experimentation-led culture end up building something internally.
Yeah.
I remember in 2013 at Airbnb, we spent almost 8 months of three engineers bandwidth. And at the time, like we didn't really have a very large engineering team to just build this experimentation framework, because our data science team would always come back and say the way you guys are running experiments is just absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
There's overlap of users. People are getting multiple experiment allocations.
That's the biggest.
What you're concluding is, there's no difference between causation and correlation. You're just creating something in your own head. It almost every experiment started with a bias that I want this to work, and then we found the data to support that this works, but later realized that actually it doesn't. And so then almost spent time to build the whole experimentation framework internally. But once that platform started working, I think it was the biggest unlock for the growth team.
Yeah, true. No, I think that's what, right? Like, you have to build in-house. I think we had to go through that painful journey of realizing that a lot of the A/B tests which are very successful when they rolled out are negative, and we're like, dude, like, what are we doing, right?
Yeah.
So we had to go back through all of that. I think I would say we are in the process of building, but yeah, there's a dedicated engineering and product team just focused on building experimentation platform. I think that's what again comes down to what Pocket is building, right? I think these are the kind of problems you're solving. Everything you have to go deep. A/B test you have to go deep because we are at any point of time there will be at least 50 to 75 experiments running in Pocket right now, which I think at Uber it's in thousands, I guess. They're in a lot of their blocks.
Yeah.
So imagine the kind of overlap that will happen. So you need like a very strong tool to sort of do that.
Awesome. We'll just open it up for questions.
How did you evaluate? When did you reach PMF?
10% plus retention.
How did you reach that 10% mark? Like,
No, I think it's a combination of two things. One was the product itself, which is the content, the stories, right? Shifting to stories helped us because that's more engaging. Users are going to keep coming back. The another part is the quality of user acquisition, which I talked about. Our customer acquisition cost went down from $300 to $50, right? So we have sort of heavily optimized in building intent actually. When I say what I mean by intent, right? So when I download the app, if I don't know what I want to listen, you're not going to listen. Because it's not Netflix, it's not a video where there's already famous movies and famous web series. It's not there. So before you download the app, you should have already got an intent. I'll tell you one subtle insight, right? What we do to create the intent. We have a story which is like, we create a video actually. Again, very surprising, like something which we never thought would work. We make a video, proper live action video of 60 minutes, 60 to 90 minute video. And then we put that out on the Facebook and YouTube. So people watch that video, they get hooked on to the story and the character. So they already know what is the story about, what do I expect. And when they download the app, right, so obviously there is this jerk that it's not video product, but we sort of set the expectation it's an audio product. After this, it's not going to be video. Now when they download the app, they already know why I downloaded, what story I want to listen, and they sort of get hooked. That was the biggest insight in improving our activation, which we call like number of users going at least 1 hour of listening. It went like almost 3 to 3.5x. The biggest insight, very subtle, make them consume before them.
Actually, very counterintuitive because I would have almost thought that in the traditional way of thinking, if somebody was consuming your product in a format that is not how you're going to deliver the rest of the experience, it would actually break the user journey because now I'm used to getting hooked to a video product. But now, once I'm hooked, you're telling me it's an audio product.
Can anybody guess why is this working for us? So you're advertising on video. It's actually like a mis-selling, right, in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
We have been able to acquire 200 million registered users, get so much of revenue and all that, which is working. Why is it working actually? What we do is we also keep the video in the app. Like initial first 10-15 episode is actually video, and then we shift to AI video, like using the same images. Basically it's like soft landing. Like we have solved all of that. Like, you start with a video and then AI generated video with the same character, the same casting. It goes for another 20-30 hours, and then slowly we make it audio. So the insight is, the more deeply I'm engaged on the story and the character, and if you make the friction, like you reduce the friction through that soft landing, that's going to work actually. So the bigger insight was in the product, putting the video out and AI video, and the second insight was in the video that we market. Previously we were doing 2-minute videos. 2-minute videos don't work. If I have a 2-minute video about a story and tell them to download the app, they are never going to engage because they're like, where is the video in this? But the same user, if I make them watch 60 minutes, that was another insight, that before you want to download the app, you're so deeply engaged that even that friction is not going to matter to you anymore. So two insights. One was the length of the video has to be very long. I think we are the only company right now which is running 60-minute ads.
60-minute ads.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Facebook is like, Facebook never thought they even allow that actually. And their account managers and even Facebook India had last week I was in the office, is like, we are one of the biggest spender there, right? So they never thought, they always tell everybody, every brand that, 30-second ad hona chahiye, 15-second hona chahiye and all that. Our ads are on an average 60 to 90 minutes.
What does that actually mean? So you upload an ad. What is this ad format? Like it appears on like a reel, or where does it show up?
It can come in your feed, Instagram feed, Facebook feed, or reels. So we do both. We do organically upload that.
Okay.
For example, organically we do like 500 million views. Organically, without paying anything for Facebook and YouTube. And then we do 1 billion views paid. So it's combined is one insane scale. So I have a story called Saving Nora. Now, we make a video on that actually. Now there is a lot of complexity there. I'm not going to get there. Again, there's a lot of product play as well. That video is a representation of the story of the first 10 to 20 hours. I take the first 10 to 20 hours of the story and write think of it as like a short movie based on
like a trailer basically.
Like a trailer, but it's like a movie, right? It's not a trailer. Trailer is 1 minute, this is like 90 minutes.
नहीं आपके तो 2000 episode है ना. This is like a trailer.
Exactly. For a 200 story, 90 minutes. So then we put that out in the. Somebody came up with this idea in the team that yaar long ad karta hai, and you're like, yaar, why would this work? Facebook is never going to recommend this. The CPMs are going to be very high and all that. Our CPMs are one of the lowest. The reason is people love these videos actually. So Facebook algorithm and YouTube algorithm thinks that it is one of their best ad because their algorithms are optimizing for the
time spent. Yeah.
Exactly, right. So our average completion rate of an ad, 20%.
Wow.
So Facebook algorithm have to promote you because it's like literally what we have done is we have subsidized our CAC. We get one of the lowest CACs, lowest CPMs because we are so good in the content that we put out. The YouTube and Facebook algorithms, even TikTok as well. And again, another thing, TikTok, a lot of people thought TikTok, we spend like 30% of our marketing budget in US. Nobody thought TikTok is going to do this. Their account manager was like, we won't even allow you to upload more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We just told them, yaar, tum backend se enable kar do. They enabled it and we uploaded. It's spending 30% of our budget.
Wow.
Same inside, their algorithm just love this content actually. So I think a lot of counterintuitive things are there in Pocket, like, which is what sort of validates that, every problem you just solve from first principle. Like, don't have any preconceived notions of what's going to work, what's not going to work. Just come with an hypothesis, experiment, learn, just keep on doing that.
This was a recording of the live event hosted by Upraised. If you like more content like this, check out the link below.